coached. I've done this coaching thing where I've worked with leaders. And so I've watched guys and gals that really, really continued to climb. And the similarity among all of them is that they were masterful with people. And I went, holy cow, there's some legitimacy to this. And then I started to see it over and over to a point that I realized that's what's going to make the difference. And so that's my view, Angie.
Well, and I have to apologize. I forgot to hit record. I just hit it. I'm such a horrible teacher, and that I forget to hit record all the time.
Shame.
So
Shame.
We are now recording this, so people will benefit from the rest of this recording and not from. So anything that we said prior to this is in confidence with just us, right? So, all right. Well, we actually received some really good questions. And so one of them that I think was really good is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to a first-year MBA student?
Yeah, here's what I learned about grad school. I went to my master's believing that I was going to find the answers to all that I sought in master's. Then I went to my doctorate and I thought, well, surely I'm going to know it all now, right? And then I realized my professors were as silly as I was. And then I realized that the experts didn't agree with themselves. And so I'm like, okay, then what in the world is the purpose of grad school? And what I realized is, if I'm going to be influential in leadership, if I'm going to be influential in management, if I'm going to impact people, I have to be the best I can be. I have to understand what moves people. I have to understand the principles enough that I can guide and instruct. Those things are absolutely critical. And so the advice is find a structure, find something that works for you, where that you can begin to hang information off of. Like that triangle I sent you, that was kind of the purpose of that, because that was essentially an answer to that question unknowingly, is that everything that I work with on a leader perspective, I can say falls under one of these three buckets. I can at least make the argument. It's not perfect, but I can make that argument. And so the best advice, and I wish I'd done this a whole lot better in my doctoral program. I didn't figure this out until it was too late. And here's what it was, is in your mind, you need to catalog every bit of information that you can. You'll forget most of what you probably are exposed to, but there's going to be things that you've got to remember. You've got to hold on to these things. And being able to hook things on to, like, okay, this addresses excellence, right? This addresses level of standards and quality. How you do anything's how you do everything. Okay, there's philosophies and methodologies around that will fit up under. Okay, good. Execution. Oh, now we're talking about accountability. We're talking about measurement. We're talking about budget and on time and measurement and all those kind of things. Okay, that's execution. And as you learn new things, whether it's an OB or whether it's in leadership or God forbid in accounting, that's a joke. Where does that fall? Well, there's certainly excellence and execution perspectives that play into that, but also accountants are notorious for their inability to connect with people. And so there's an engagement component there in messaging. So again, I'm not saying this is the right triangle, but in your own mind, thinking about creating your own ideal so that you can hook this information on, it's the best advice I can give you.
Can you tell us what the Chinese characters in the middle stand for, or is that just something that you picked out?
Yeah, it says sweet tea.
That's so it says sweet tea. in the
Do you
middle,
see do you see the T on that?
kind of.
Okay. Now well, I'll give you the context of this. The triangle is, and I've had one research question, Angie, for 25 years, 26 now, is what separates the world class from the average. That's been my obsession. And as I've coached leaders, I continue to hear the same story time and time and time and time again. And where executive failures or leadership failures always fall is in one of these three areas. Think about leaders in your past. Think about leaders you know. Did one of their failure points occur because of one of these? And I'm not saying it's always like this. Some people are really good at the engagement and they're terrible at excellence. And some people are really good at execution and excellence, but they hate people. And so that's a big deficit. But when a leader can keep his or her eye on all three of these simultaneously, you're winning the game. Now the center point comes from a Japanese manufacturing philosophy called Kaizen. And that symbol there is essentially Kaizen, which means constant and never-ending improvement. And where leadership comes in is that center point. Leaders, managers, supervisors, mom and dad, owners of pets, all the way, pastors. All of those people are a living, breathing example of a standard. They are a living, breathing example, right? And if they are not continually growing, if they're not continually improving and looking to improve, they will grow stagnant. Or they'll be disqualified in their leadership. And so it's a responsibility that's first and foremost and center to running anything. We so often think that leadership is about doing for others, and it is. It's serving others, but it's about a daily earning the right to lead. And so many leaders don't think they have that responsibility and obligation, and that's the reason that they don't have people following them. Make sense? That's that crazy sweet tea in the middle.
I love that it's sweet tea, but it does make sense. We had just recently, a lot of our assignments, we just did our HR chapter. So we had talked about internal recruitment versus external recruitment and how pivotal really internal recruitment is for growth opportunities for people within your firm. Like you're saying, when it comes to a leader, people have to know there's a future for them in it. If not, it tends to leave people frustrated. So another question for you, Brian. It came, and I don't know if everybody knows this about you, but you do have a business and you do professional coaching of CEOs and top management. What are some of the concerns that you've heard from them regarding ways to motivate or keep employees during times of a company struggle, or even during times of COVID as well?
Who asked that question?
Sweet Tea did. So
where is she?
Not to put you on the spot. Do you want me to stop sharing so you can see her?
No, I got it right now. I see her. I've got it going on here. Bless her heart. She has to drink. She's focusing so much on that. What was the question again, Angie? I'm sorry. There goes Ford again.
Okay. So it's, what are some of the concerns that you've heard from the people that you've coached regarding ways to motivate and or keep employees during times of company struggle? So how do you keep your employees motivated if things are not going well?
I have just seen the greatest case study on this. I was so excited that this happened. So one of the companies, this is a guy or a company that they own about 6 NASCAR teams. Okay. And they also own an entire auto sales company. Okay. This individual is the epitome. He's a billionaire. He's a known billionaire, but he's known for his integrity. He's known for his care of employees. And so I don't coach him. I coach some of his people. And they started telling me early in the pandemic, Mr. Hendrick has volunteered to pay our salary up until the end of this date. And this is not just one car dealership. This is a national, I mean, this guy's a big deal. And you would not believe the impact that that had on the employee base in terms of building the right culture. Because what it did was he reinstituted a reminder of, I've got your back as a leader. Fundamental to any leadership question is do leaders have their back? Yes, done, game, set, and match. And then finally giving his people the feeling that, hey, you're okay, but we're gonna have to stretch. Now, here's the backing of this finding. The business research has been confirming this for 25 years. We know this is true, but business people don't always follow their own research. Month after month after month since this has happened, during a pandemic, he has had record earnings, best earnings in history, not in a couple years. Why that's happening? It's probably because people are buying a lot more cars, but it doesn't account for the statistical change in the revenue. It's crazy. And that right there is an evidence of leaders have to remember the following. People are watching you. Kids are watching you. If you're a parent, the entire organization is watching you if you're a president, and the entire country is watching you if you are president of the US. And the fact of the matter is you have to take action. Inaction will absolutely kill you in crisis. Action is not the right answer. Action is not the wrong answer. Action is just action. If we knew what the right answer was for all these business decisions, we wouldn't have to have the meetings. But we often get afraid of the consequences, and so we don't move. And that destroys us more often than I think we care to admit. That answer the question, Nancy? I'm sorry.
It did. And next week, we're actually focusing on motivation. So we talk about next week those basic needs being met, that security, or just feeling like, you know, somebody has your back, and how that, what kind of effect that has on your motivation. So here's another question for you. What is one of the worst mistakes that you've learned from in your career? Not to put you on the spot or anything. And I'm going to stop sharing the triangle unless you think you want to go back to it. We can leave it up there. I am just,
I'm trying to think of my worst mistake in management, leadership, in life. I don't want that one.
In your career is what was posed.
Oh,
you know, we often learn more from our mistakes than we do from doing things good.
Amen
so
to that.
It's a learning experience. So what is one of the worst mistakes you've ever made, and how did you learn from that? Like, do you feel like you're being interviewed for a position right now?
Kind of.
Hey, we're on our HR chapter, so that's a good question to ask people.
I didn't think of the things that I should have been thinking about in two contexts. Let me give you the context. You're going to read about at some point in your program about schema. You probably already read about it. Schema comes from, basically, it's your worldview. It's how you see things. It's your story. It's what your parents taught you. It's if you accidentally ran over something, or you The good days, the bad days, all of this shapes the lens by which we see the world, and we can't help that. And that's how we see the world. And so I think often is that we can't help but see the world through our own lens. We just can't help it. So I'm sitting in this meeting, a hurricane's getting ready to hit Banks in Houston. Okay. I'm responsible for a certain aspect of that. And my boss, who at that time was a COO of an organization, who was the following. He was an angry person. He hated education. He was a nervous Nelly, if I can use those descriptors. And he talked about the hurricane hitting and destroying all of the things and all the things we need to do. And my response was, what do we need? Well, let's just let's go. Who cares? We'll figure out what to do. It's not a big deal. We're all not going to die here, right? And it infuriated him. And I learned a really good lesson is that it doesn't matter, Brian, what you think is the right way. What matters is often you need to think about what the impression that you're sending. And I didn't even know that I was coming across as flippant and nonchalant, and I didn't care. And I do care, but my personality was just, and I didn't see it. And that was a big mistake. I mean, that was a strategic mistake. That was one mistake, Angie. I have 100 of them.
That really plays to the importance of emotional intelligence.
It
right?
does. It does.
And
Self-awareness.
Teresa almost fell out of her chair. I saw that. Don't think that I didn't see that. She got so excited about you talking about different points of view and seeing things through different lenses that she almost fell out of her chair. So I did see that. Before I open it up just for anybody to ask you questions, we did have one question that I need to ask, and it's, what spirit animal are you closest to? And I'm going to leave it just up to you to pick. Now, the person that asked this question actually suggested 3 different spirit animals, but I think we're just going to leave it up to you.
Yeah, I'm going to go llama. And
I don't think most of them know that you have a llama picture hanging above one of the toilets in your house.
That is correct. Would you all like to see? No. Oh, Teresa's saying yes. No, I probably maybe I
Those in the School of Business have seen it on several occasions during our meetings during COVID.
Okay.
Okay, but Brian, why do you consider yourself a llama? What is it about a llama that you relate to?
Well, I like to, there's several things here. Look at the glasses. Okay, you see that? Look at the color of hair. You see that? You see how he looks kind of happy? I'm a fairly happy guy. My ears.
He looks like maybe your brother.
Right. So whenever I come in, I'm reminded that my spirit animal says, B, do you. Don't worry about what everybody thinks. You do you. So my spirit animal is a llama.
I think that's great. And I think it does represent you because you do you, which is great. I mean, when we talk about leadership, we talk about authentic leadership and that you have to be true to who you are and to work with the gifts that you've been given and the strengths that you have, and just be authentic. So you being a llama is you being you, and that's completely authentic. So I appreciate that. Before I ask him another question off of our canned questions that were provided, do any of you guys in the group have a question for Dr. Epperson at this point? And don't be afraid to speak up. Oh, look at Teresa has a microphone. That's really scary. You're on mute, girl.
You're still, you're still on mute.
I think she knows that, and I think she's doing it on purpose. Maybe she's singing karaoke or something.
Uh,
All right. Well, if you guys don't have any questions at this point, Brian, do you mind staying on with us for a little bit longer, or do you need to go?
no, I'm having fun. So, yeah, let's
Well,
keep doing it.
then let's move on down the list. So, was business your first major, or did you go a different route and end up in business? Like when you talked about loving education, what were you interested in when you first got started?
Oh, so yeah, my first major was a communication and a double major in kind of common philosophy, right? And you guys remember my background. You remember I barely graduated high school, and I didn't pay attention the last 12 years of those years. And so I literally was like, give me the degree that I don't have to do any math. They're like, that's going to be philosophy and comm. And I'm like, check. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, that's how that happened.
Okay, I can understand the comm, not having any math, but philosophy, that's a tough subject to just muster yourself through. I mean, it's not easy.
You realize a lot of people at Newman actually try to stay away from philosophy. So what made you go the philosophy route? It's a pretty hard major. That's not actually...
Yeah, because it didn't require any math and it made sense. Okay. You give me a formula or like an addition or subtraction symbol and I'm like, I'm out. You give me a little SART and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes all kinds of sense.
Nice. Okay, that's interesting. What were you planning on doing with it? So did anyone ever ask you, hey, so you're going to get a comm, you're going to get philosophy, but where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Are you going to go to law school? Are you going to just sit around and be an armchair philosopher and just kind of...
You know, honest to goodness, when I started that, I was thinking, I'm either going to go like join the FBI or I'm going to do something cool. You know, I'm going to go like blow stuff up or, I thought about law enforcement. I thought about all the cool jobs and then to get in the FBI, I had to do like math. And I was like, that's not going to work. And it wasn't so much it was the degree I could get quickest and gave me just something that I could do and be successful in. So that was really the gist of that answer, Jill. I mean, it wasn't well thought out. I just loved being in the classroom. I loved learning. I loved the whole environment of putting ideas together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I finally found my people. It wouldn't have mattered what the degree was in.
So you talked about the major, sorry, Angie, you talked about the major in the military that played a role with you. Was there someone, either the major or someone else in your life educationally that played a significant role in how you became who you became today?
That's a great question. My chair, my dissertation chair, Dr. Van Gundy, he was world renowned in creativity and innovation. I developed an innovation model, okay? Now, I picked Van Gundy because I tried to get the hardest dissertation committee I could get, and Van Gundy was awesome, right? He was irreverent. He didn't care. He appreciated that about me. And the thing that he loved about me, he didn't call me Brian. He called me Throckmorton. Still to this day, I'm not sure why he called me Throckmorton. For like years, he called me Throckmorton. He was the weirdest person ever, but I loved him. And Van Gundy, what he gave me, Dr. Fort, more than anything was academically, he gave me confidence in myself because he was a maverick. He didn't do what he was supposed to. He he broke the rules. And when I told him, I want to make a new model, and he goes, "You're an idiot, but let's do it." You know, that was like my boy. And when I finally graduated, when they finally said, "Dr. Epperson," he took me out and introduced me to the Grey Goose Martini. And it's the drunkest I've ever been with an old man. Just wanted to, so.
When you said your people, Brian, I'm imagining Socrates and Plato and Nietzsche, you know, all these great philosophers. And then there's Epperson with his llama spirit.
Right,
Yeah.
no.
And the Grey Goose is kind of our tradition, by the way. Like, you finish your PhD and then you get a dinner and drinks on your professor. Your dissertation chair normally takes you out for some sort of meal. So, and
Okay,
normally,
did you all hear that, you MBA students?
they get you fairly intoxicated. Not, oh yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're gonna get intoxicated. You're not gonna get us intoxicated, but when you suffer through your PhD, it's kind of the rite of passage, so to speak, for you.
It's a miserable journey, isn't it?
So what would the rite of passage be for an MBA student? If Grey Goose is a PhD, what are we talking about for MBA?
Boone's Farm in a paper bag, something along those lines.
I like starting there. I'm just thinking MD 2020. You know, I mean, you guys are in the middle of a pandemic, you know, Mad Dog 2020. Let's all go get wasted together when this is over.
It's funny that we actually just mentioned that type of alcohol this morning in a conversation. So it's interesting that it actually comes back around. So what is one piece of advice, Brian, that you would give to the first year MBA student? So a lot of these people are in their first year. You've been there, you've been in their shoes. What's one piece of advice that you would give to them before they take one of your classes?
Yeah, okay. Advice. Here's the game you don't want to play in grad school. Okay. I'm learning all these lessons the hard way because all my professors told me to do it this way, and I'm like, whatever. And so all these are from hard lessons. But here's the thing with grad school. Grad school is not undergrad. Point one, infinitely important for you to understand the difference. And here's why. Because so-and-so said it's the right answer, who cares? What do you think about it? Evaluate your perspectives. When you come across an idea of a theorist that says, this is how you should approach leadership, and you're like, I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, that's okay. Challenge yourself to think about what you believe, because here's the thing. You are nothing more in terms of your influence and your leadership, nothing more than your own beliefs and mojo coming out with people. It's that simple. Grad school is a perfect time for you to butt up and rub up against all these ideas and say, I'm going to grab that one. I like that one. I like that one, because you've got to have a philosophy that is going to stand up against a whole lot of opposition and a whole lot of perspectives that don't agree with yours. Because if you don't have conviction about what you believe, you can forget about leadership. You'll fail every time because you're never going to make people happy, no matter how good you are. And so with that said, you've got to give yourself time with the information. And here's that. And I tell clients this all the time. You are a product of your daily habits. Okay? It's that simple. You're fat because your daily habits align with that. You're overweight, you're sick, you've got these problems, and it's not because life's just hard, it's because your daily habits are giving you that. It's real simple. We can't.
Obviously, Dr. Epperson's never been a female going through hormonal changes, because you always hear that after 40 it's harder to lose weight. So the weight that we put on is not our fault.
I agree with that.
How important do you think networking is in all of this? That's some of the reason why we've been doing this weekly Zoom session, is to get to know each other. And we've got, Hillary's in Florida, and Miss Shayla is now in Washington State, and we're kind of spread across the country and then based in Wichita. But part of it is that networking experience of getting to know each other and being able to just be allies and promote each other. So how important do you think networking is to advancing yourself in the business industry?
I think it's infinitely important, and not because of probably what your textbooks say. Here's my philosophy on what the textbooks say, and it's I need to be careful here, because I don't want to be irreverent to the almighty textbook. I might get fired. My boss is on the call here. But here's the thing. If you're so good people can't ignore you, you will never have to be in relationships with people that are going to help you get a job. It's real simple. If you're excellent at what you do, you'll never be looking for a job, and you can forget about needing to network. But that's a belief. But here's what I think the value of networking really is for you, is it because it forces, if it makes you uncomfortable, to get out and expand your perspectives, to see every chance you get to sit down and have questions with someone you've never met and are in an industry that you're not in, and can teach you something about the world or about life or about yourself. And if networking it will provide opportunities, no question about it, but you don't have to worry about it if you nail your work. I mean, if you do excellence, I mean, it's 2020. All you got to do is like a decent job and you're going to be like world class, right? Be so good people can't ignore you. That's a value of networking, but most importantly, it's pushing up against where you're comfortable. Because if you get too comfortable in anything, it will rot. It always does, just like my belly.
I totally agree with that statement. And one comment that I've made on a lot of the students' papers, we're doing a job analysis. So they're looking at job descriptions versus job specifications. And when we look at some of the stuff that we would apply for, my biggest question back to them is, do you have to meet all the requirements for the job that you apply for? Because if you do, then there's no growth opportunity in the job, right? If I walk into a position and I've already met all the requirements and I have all the experience necessary, what is that going to do for me as an individual to be able to grow in my job? So do you have any advice for anybody seeking for a job on how do you actually know what you're going to be able to grow into, if that makes sense? Because if you meet all the requirements right off the bat, I would think that eventually you're going to start to get bored in that position. Maybe it's just my own mind thinking this way.
No, I was thinking about it, Angie. I'm sorry. I was really intentional about raising my daughter, and that was one I wasn't going to fail at. I was like, I'm not screwing this one up. I'll screw up everything, but I'm not screwing this one. So I was so like, man, I was reading books, Dr. Whatever his name was. I was all about it. I was terrified. I was going to suck as a dad, and all these things. And one of the things that I taught my daughter, and when she was valedictorian of her class at 16, and she was speaking, she did the graduation ceremony, and I was so proud of her for the following statement: always run at what's hard. Always run at what scares you. Don't have a relationship with what scares you. Run at it. Go at it. Because the death of fear is certain. when we wrestle with what we're afraid of and we realize on the other end of that that it's not that bad, then we begin to live. We begin to be impactful. We begin to be influential. But so often we've got this fear that we just can't do that. We're not supposed to. And we're not supposed to fail. We're not supposed to be weak. And so we show up and our leadership is inauthentic, and then we only do the safe plays, and then our life is boring, and then we quit growing, and then we stagnate, and then you're just a statistic like everyone else. But what changes the world are people who have come alive. It's people who have stepped into their place and have just finally said, you know what? I'm an idiot in math. I don't follow the rules very well. I think meetings are stupid. I don't like corporate life. I prefer flip-flops over anything, but I'm gonna do me. And God bless me for it. And it gets me in trouble, but it's the only me that I can do. And when I did that, that's when I turned into a leader over my people, is because I realized I suck at a lot of different things, but what I'm good at, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you all I got in that area. And they define that as leadership and management because they knew I had their back. And that was my credo. And here's a true story about this. So can I continue to tell stories, Professor McCoy? Okay. So true story, here I am. And it was the funniest thing, and I should have known better, but I didn't, because again, I always have to learn things a little bit difficult. And so I'm a dean at that time. And one of the things that I had picked up in the business world is that you need to be interacting and soliciting input from your employees constantly, right? And so one of the things that I used to do in corporate is once a month, ask every employee I had, what do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? And what do I need to change? And every month they would give that to me and I would start to give that back to them. And we would have this interchange and we had that dialogue where start, stop, change, start, stop, change. And it all became kind of this relationship. So when I got into academe, I had a bunch of these wily business professors that are all a big old pain in the arse, if you're honest. Business professors are just difficult. Professors in general are fairly difficult because they think they know everything. But it was like the first month I was on the job and I interviewed them all one-on-one and I said, what do I need to start, stop, and change? And do you know how long that list was? It's like pages. I'm writing. I'm like, I'm an idiot for taking this job. I'm not saying it out loud because I don't want to look like a poser. And I would do that consistently. And I did that about 3.5 years into it. And guess how many bullet points I had on that list? Just take a shot in the dark. 0. Right. Now, did it have anything to do that I all of a sudden became a great manager of people? No. I probably still suck at it. But I went to their family things. They knew I had their back whenever I could get money for them. I did. They knew I had their back. And for all the flaws and faults and all the stupid things I did as a boss, they just overlooked them. And that's the thing with leadership and management that we can't separate, is that good leadership is the exception. It's not the rule. There's very few leaders, good leaders out there. And it's because we've lost a sense of what integrity and character means. And in order to put people where they belong, we have to be people of character. I'm not saying faith character, I'm just saying of character. Okay, I got carried away again. I'm a professor. I can't help myself.
It's okay. Halfway through your speech, I froze, and I don't know if everybody else was okay, but it was like, am I just the only one frozen? And then it went back to like where I shared the screen, and I was like, so hopefully it simulcasted for everybody just fine, and it was just me that was frozen in time. But so when you, oh, go ahead.
So guys, what that lecture on Adam Smith and how that entire system of economics and worldview come together in business, you will have essentially, you understand there is everything to know about business through that Adam Smith example. So thank you. Sorry, Angie.
I was gonna say you're talking about the wealth of nations, and I thought you weren't like a math guy, like econ. We're bringing this in, like this is. Oh, yeah. All right. Did you give an accounting lecture while I was gone too?
I was just teasing, just teasing.
Well, okay, I'm going to pause at this point. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Epperson that you guys can think of? He is like this executive coach. So even if you had like personal questions on how to promote yourself, this is your time. Oh, Jill, you're pointing down, and down for me on the computer is Keith.
Sweet tea.
Where you point? Oh, Teresa, try your microphone out.
Okay, can you hear me? A little bit. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You can hear me now. Hello, can you hear me now? I would like to know, what is your very favorite class to teach? Out of everything you've taught, what's your favorite class?
Oh, gosh. It was actually a seminar. That was kind of a series of seminars, and I took Crystal Magnates, which was a book that was written by, I can't remember his name, but it was about Nick Saban, the head football coach at Alabama, and Urban Meyer, who at the time was the head coach at Florida. And I am obsessed with process thinking, process orientation, process thinking, like Nick Saban's process thinking. He actually learned that from a Michigan State professor. And so I'm fascinated with Saban's record. You can't deny his record. The guy wins. He wins all the time. Does he have faults? Yes. Is he a hard son of a gun a lot? Yes. But he wins. And so this book was written about him, what he did. They studied Urban Meyer and Saban, and it was a fascinating. So I talked about that. I talked about the New Zealand rugby team. I brought in examples with Goran Kropp, who climbed Everest on his own. I brought in examples of Mozart and showed that there are commonalities among us all who are significant achievers, right? There's a consistency, there's consistent themes in all of them, right? And so with the seminar, I started to kind of lay these things out. Here's what I found, here's what I've discovered. The book I recently put out, that was essentially the beginning of a couple volumes of those lessons, Teresa. Yeah, thank you.
I was gonna say, go ahead and plug your book if you want to.
I just did. It'll cost you.
You didn't give us a title. You didn't give us where we could go find it. Plug it.
Plug it. The book is on Apple Books or Amazon or Barnes & Noble Electronic. And it's called The Code of the Exceptional, Volume 1. So it was written for the busy person who's not an academic, okay? There's not a lot of words. It's kind of structured as 2 or 3 paragraphs in action. So.
Well, and I love how you set it up that it's volume 1. So that means volume 2 will be coming soon.
Yeah. Hopefully very soon.
Jill, what does that mean? Volume 9? 5. What are you guys talking about?
He
I
told
have
me
to
there
let
were,
you know that
he told me
my
he told me
husband
there were
has
9.
he just started a fire. Do you guys see that?
Nice. He told me there were 9 volumes in it.
9 volumes. Wow.
Yeah.
Like that's more than Harry Potter, I think.
My books are very short. You got to remember the only people that would read my book would be people that have a short attention span. That's
or your students. They have to, they have to follow you.
Maybe we should do that. Christina's been in a couple classes with me. I recognize her. Christina, do you think I should have a class where I require students to buy the book that I wrote?
I would say, yeah. I think that kind of like shows them kind of like a different side to you. I mean, and plus like you get paid for it too. So it's kind of like a double whammy. You're getting paid to teach and they're buying your book. So
I'm so proud of you for being a capitalist. I mean, good for you. You are clearly being developed well.
Well, and you've got a captive audience, right? If you require your class to buy it, they kind of have to. It's required course material. We can definitely send that out. At this point, guys, we're really close to the time being done. Are there any other questions, ending questions for Dr. Epperson? Here's your chance to pick his brain on anything.
Oh, please. Listen, guys, if students, if you don't ask me a question, I'm going to feel like I'm crazy. Like they hated you. You're an idiot. You didn't respond. You just talk too much if you don't ask questions. That's how us professors feel when students don't ask questions. We feel like we're an idiot. I'm going to go home and try again tomorrow. So again, please ask a question. Michelle, come on, ask anything.
Well, I kind of submitted a question. I don't know if you guys, I kind of came in late because I got off of work late, but
Which was it?
It was what is like the best and worst mistake you've ever made? The best being something that you learned a lot from, and then the worst being something that you costed you a lot at the time, but it was probably best that you made that mistake then.
We talked about his worst mistake, but not his best.
Okay.
What was the best mistake you've ever made, Brian?
Coming to Newman.
Oh, what? See, I celebrate mistakes, so that sounds great.
Coming to Newman at first felt like a mistake, and now it feels, I get it. So that was it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional. I'm like, it was a mistake that I'm here. It was good. That's a best mistake.
Well, and it's one of those that we're glad he's here because he's part of our family. So we're glad you made that mistake and you ended up with us.
Come on, Christina. Come on, Christina. What you got?
Put Keith on the spot. He hasn't asked a question. Well, he submitted some, but.
Okay, what was Keith's question?
Keith, I just printed all of them. What is your biggest pet peeve, Brian? Keith, was that yours? Yeah, it was.
People, I'm guilty of this, guys. I'm absolutely guilty of this, but my biggest pet peeve is not treating people with ultimate dignity and respect. There's no responsibility. I mean, there's no excuse for that. That's the standard. And when people don't do that, it demonstrates narcissism. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of people, and it demonstrates someone that not going to learn. And it also demonstrates someone who's not going to have a very big following. So, okay, pet peeve answered.
That was a good answer. Well, guys, we're at our time. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I shared Brian's, Dr. Epperson's bio that's listed on the Newman website with the class as well. If you have any other questions for him, I can provide you with his email address, but several of you will have him in classes anyway if you haven't had that experience going forward. But thank you, Brian, for staying on the call with us for the entire hour. And thank you for providing your knowledge and expertise with the class. My husband has now kicked up the fire, if you guys can see it a little bit more. So I'm gonna go eat some pizza and hang out under the lights for a little bit. And we will see you guys all next week.
Wait.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Angie, I'm so sorry. Hello-reen. You're on mute.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if anyone's ever told you this, Hello-reen, but your name says Teflon Went.
I can see that because my husband is set up this Zoom on here and he put his name only. So I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
I don't recognize Teflon. I don't think I've had her in class. Maybe that's something to happen. It was good to see you.
Good to see you. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. I just want to make sure I had kind of come to when Went finally focused instead of Teflon.
Yes.
As you guys can see, it's nice for the professors to be able to see your faces as well. So that's part of the reason why we're doing this, is so you can get to know them and they can get to know you and put a face with a name and we can start connecting. So yeah, if you haven't had the privilege of taking a class from Dr. Epperson, if you're in the leadership track, you will. But he's very instrumental in the whole curriculum of the MBA program. Basically, he's in charge and he's setting it. So every class that you take has his fingertips on it, has his touch on it. So, all right. Well, I want to wish you guys all a happy evening. Go enjoy yourself. Miss Shayla, it's still bright outside behind you. And as you can see here in Kansas, it's kind of dark. I'm sure in Florida, it's really dark by now.
Yeah, it's pretty bright. I'm gonna go enjoy the evening though.
Your background looks fake, Angie, but I know it's real. It looks like
Yes.
it's fake.
It does look fake.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So this is my beer garden, guys. This is what my husband built me right off our house. And so I've got my hanging lights and he's got if you guys can see it, a half of an old propane tank is our fire pit. And so when he gets it going really good, we can grill bacon on it, which is great.
And we will be over when?
Oh, whenever. It's always open. Like you can always come over.
Can I wear my flannels?
Sure. This is
Careful that you don't burn.
Bacon, man. I'll drive up from freaking Texas to come have bacon.
There you go.
Are you kidding me? I'm in for that. Let's do
We're
that.
all about bacon in the McCoy household. We love our bacon. So yeah. But this is part of this is my happy space. This is where I go to kind of unwind at night when the weather's okay. And it was hot today, but it's okay now. So, and I love light. So I've got lights hanging all over my property. So, but it was good seeing you guys tonight. Enjoy your evening.
It was good seeing you all.
Connect again next week.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Dr.
Bye, Mr. Jones. We saw you for like half a second. Bye.
Oh, there he is.
I was like, he's there. I know he's there.
Mr. Jones, there he is.
Bye, guys.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
See ya.